Narco-terrorism has become Donald Trump's new favorite word as he pretends to wage war against drugs in this country, even though he and his administration are doing absolutely nothing to actually curb drug use in America.
Mr. Henry's so clear how you want to keep drugs out of the U.S. Can you explain more about why you can pardon a notorious drug trafficker?
Well, I don't know who you're talking about. Which
Juan Fernando Hernandez.
Well, I was told, I was asked by Honduras, many of the people of Honduras, they said it was a Biden setup. Not only Biden, but Biden didn't know he was alive, but it was the people that surround the Resolute desk, surround Biden when he was there, which was about very little time. And the people of Honduras really thought he was set up and it was a terrible thing. He was the president of the country. And they basically said he was a drug dealer because he was the president of the country. And they said it was a Biden administration setup. And I looked at the facts and I agreed with them.
What evidence did you share that he was set up and that he wasn't?
Well, you take a look. I mean, they could say that you take any country you want. If somebody sells drugs in that country, that doesn't mean you arrest the president and put him in jail for the rest of his life.
President, can I just clarify something that you have?
That includes this country, okay? To be honest, I mean, if somebody does something wrong, you put the president of the country in jail. They said it was a Biden setup. It was a Biden administration setup. And you have a big race going on this week, next week. I think it's going to be a very important race. It's going to be interesting to see Honduras. That's what you're talking about, right?
Correct, yes.
So the president is sending a message to other cartels, right?
A very clear one. I can tell you that was definitely not artificial intelligence. I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States, trying to poison our country with illicit drugs.
The Caribbean boat strikes, the administration has acknowledged that there was a second strike in that attack in September, but they have not said if there were any defenseless survivors. Should they release the video to Congress, the unedited video to Congress and to the American public? And two, if the defenseless survivors were killed, would that constitute a violation of the laws of war?
I'm not going to prejudge any of that. As you know, both of the Armed Services Committee and the Senate and the House will be having hearings on this to review, and that's their role. I have been listening. Again, I was pretty busy yesterday. Didn't follow a lot of the news, but I caught up a little bit early this morning. That my assessment of this, my understanding is that most of the people that have looked at this, at least in a preliminary review, say that the admiral who ordered the second strike thought it was necessary to complete the mission. He's a highly decorated, highly respected admiral in the Navy, and he made that call.
I have a statement to read for you here. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated.
You said that second strike was in full accordance with the law of armed conflict, but the Navy's own manual of law of war says that specifically firing on survivors from a wrecked vessel is an example of a war crime that's forbidden under U.S. law and the law of armed conflict. So how was that second strike in following the law of armed conflict and then second on immigration?
Again, Andrew, I would reiterate to you the strike was conducted in international waters and in accordance with the law of armed conflict. And since somebody asked about Congress, and it's sort of related to Venezuela, I also want to add that Secretary Hegseth spoke with members of Congress who may have expressed some concerns over the weekend. And there have also been 13 bipartisan briefings to Congress on the Venezuelan strikes. There have been a number of document reviews for members of Congress to review the classified DOJ Office of Legal Counsel opinion and other related documents. 29 senators and 92 representatives have reviewed those documents, which is about 2/3 of those are Democrat members, and they have been made available to all 100 senators, all 435 members of the House, and to general counsels of the relevant committees on a bipartisan basis for their review.
We'll have hearings. We'll have public hearings. We'll put people under oath. We need to get to the bottom of this. hey, the U.S. military is, the most powerful and effective, military in the world. And we've got to be, precise, and we have to be operating in accordance with U.S. law and international law, always.
Based on what CNN is reporting, what the Washington Post is reporting, do you believe if there was a second strike to eliminate any survivors, that constitutes a war crime?
It seems to. If that is true, if what has been reported is accurate, I've got serious concerns about anybody in that chain of command stepping over a line that they should never step over. We are not Russia. We're not Iraq. We hold ourselves to a very high standard of professionalism. And this is where I'm really troubled about this, is because I have so much respect for people in the United States Navy. I served in the Navy for 25 years, and there is no organization more professional than Navy SEALs. And they should be revered. And that's why I say I hope what I've heard about this strike is not accurate.
You mentioned that you were a captain in the Navy. If you received that order, would you have carried it out?
No.
You can't make this stuff up. While Trump is busy using false accusations of drug trafficking as an excuse to invade Venezuela and murder its president, he just announced he's pardoning a real narco trafficker, the former Honduran President Juan Orlando Fernandez, who was extradited to the United States and convicted in a U.S. federal court for drug trafficking. Hernandez has been serving a 45-year prison sentence for helping to smuggle hundreds of tons of cocaine into the U.S. And Trump announced the pardon exactly at a time when this Sunday, Hondurans go to the polls. He also told Hondurans, get this, who they should vote for. The conservative pro-U.S. candidate, of course, and said the U.S. will withhold resources to Honduras if Trump's candidate doesn't win. This is so twisted. Let's hope it backfires, and let's demand that the U.S. stop its interference in the internal affairs of Latin America. Hands off Venezuela. Hands off Honduras. Hands off Latin America.
So I really do kind of not only want to see them killed in the water, whether they're on the boat or in the water, but I'd really like to see them suffer. I would like Trump and Hegseth to make it last a long time so that they lose a limb and bleed out a little. Like, I'm really having a difficult time ginning up sympathy for these guys who 10 seconds earlier almost got taken out by the initial bomb, but because they managed to get ejected, a little too soon, had to be taken out in the water. I realize legally it may make a difference, but truly, Mark, this is a tough case to really gin up the sympathies of the American people.
Yeah. At this point, we've blown up dozens and dozens of fishing boats off the coast of Venezuela, and we know that it's just a complete lie, the idea that they're transporting cocaine into the country. That's not how the majority of drugs get here. They get here via airplane. They get here via trucks coming across the southern Mexican border. And at the end of the day, our drug policies do nothing but fuel cartels in the first place, because drugs are not taxed or regulated. They're not a controlled substance. It's very difficult to get your hands on controlled substances in this country because the government regulates it. But pretty much anybody can get their hands on cocaine, heroin, anything that you want, literally. All you got to do is go outside, walk a couple blocks, and somebody that you walk past can probably hook you up. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the entire world. That is not a secret. Donald Trump has been talking about taking Venezuela's oil for quite some time. This is not new. He's the one who said we should have taken the oil from Iraq. We should have taken the oil. This is how Donald Trump thinks. This is not new. Nobody's really buying the idea that we have the legal right to just blow up these boats. Because like I said, at the end of the day, it's really doing nothing to actually curb drug use in this country. Unless we not forget that he literally just pardoned Juan Orlando Hernandez, the ex-president of Honduras, who was convicted of transporting literally tons, billions of dollars worth of cocaine into this country. And you just let him out of prison because of bribery and because of corruption. That's who this man is.